I want to talk now about this. This is not politics, but in most political campaigns, candidates they like to identify with popular music, songs that make people get up and dance. But sometimes those artists don't like to be associated with the candidates who have chosen their songs. With us is John Rizvi. He's a lawyer. He's called the patent professor. We're really talking about copyright law here. Um, Professor Rizvi, welcome back to Nightside. How are you?
Yeah, good. It's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
It's interesting. I guess according to the article that I read, um, Donald Trump uses the Village People's YMCA song a lot. He comes out and kind of dances at that. They have not raised, as I understand it, a complaint, but other artists have. What's going on?
Yeah, so I mean, surprisingly, they did complain in 2016 when he used it back then. But I mean, this time we haven't heard anything. I don't know if it's that we haven't heard a complaint yet, but certainly that's unusual. But
well, I hope the artists haven't passed on to the big YMCA in the sky.
The fact that it's surprising to not get a complaint, it seems, because there's just so many that have stepped forward this time. Because when they get a complaint, typically what happens is the politicians will switch and move on to something else. But in the case of Donald Trump, he's had complaints from Phil Collins, Elton John, Guns N' Roses, Prince, Celine Dion. The list just goes on and on.
Yeah, the estate, I think, if I'm not mistaken, of Isaac Hayes. Isaac, obviously having an estate himself, has passed on.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. But in all fairness, this is not something unusual just to Donald Trump. Like Bruce Springsteen sent a cease and desist to Ronald Reagan for use of "Born in the USA." Like the George Bush has received cease and desist for Bobby McFerrin's "Don't Worry, Be Happy." Bob Dole has received them. This is not unusual. Unfortunately, it's not. It's something that it's against the law. It's not. It's a violation of copyright law, and it keeps happening. And part of the issue is
I'm seeing, Professor, I'm seeing a pattern here. I think you said Bruce Springsteen was upset with Ronald Reagan. Others were upset with George Bush, Bob Dole, Donald Trump. Have any of the Democratic presidential campaigns ever had a complaint about? I mean,
yeah.
Bill Clinton used to use the song, about keep thinking about tomorrow. I remember every time I was at a Clinton event back in the '90s, that was a Stevie Nicks song, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so I mean, in fairness, though, I guess I gave a lot of examples that were Republican candidates, but Obama received a cease and desist from Sam Moore for "Hold On, I'm Coming." So it's not exclusively Republican candidates, but artists in general are leaning towards the Democratic ticket, right? So that there's going to be. There are going to be, I guess, some party lines regarding music and copyright infringement as to who complains and when. But it hasn't been exclusively Republicans. But I will give you're right. It's been, certainly in favor of Republican candidates getting being on the tail end of receiving
maybe not in favor, but in
infringement.
opposition to. Might be the way to think about it. It's really interesting. Remember, I think it was Michael Jordan when he was asked about not endorsing some Republican candidate who was running for office. Endorsing, I should say, a Democratic candidate over a Republican. He said something like, "Well, Republicans buy sneakers too." So you would think that some of these artists might be delighted that their songs are being resurrected in some cases. I mean, YMCA hasn't put out a record in a long time. If that group, the Village People, haven't put out a record, I don't think, in a long time.
Yeah, so I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not just an economic concern, because even if the politicians would pay licensing fees. The licensing fees are pennies in the grand scheme of things compared to the costs of their campaign.
Yeah.
So it's not that they're not asking permission because they don't want to pay the licensing fees. That's not it. Part of it is if the old adage that it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. If you ask permission and they pretty much know the answer is going to be no, then you really look bad if you go ahead and do it anyway. So I think they've taken the route of let's not ask permission. Let's go ahead and do it. If we receive a cease and desist, we will, in some cases, switch to a different artist. But unfortunately, in other cases, they just continue anyway, and that's what's concerning to me as a intellectual property attorney. I do patent, trademark, and copyright law. Is that it's just blatant infringement in a lot of cases. This isn't fair use. This isn't a situation where they're making political statements using the music. It's actually using the music which should be licensed, and they're not licensing the rights. They're not paying, but they're not asking permission either.
So let's assume that Donald Trump is an example. He's pretty litigious. Let's assume that he said, well, I'm going to pay whatever the nominal fee is to be able to use Bruce Springsteen's film, or whomever. Would the artist then be basically foreclosed from any sort of legal action, or would that?
No, because it's not just yes, you do have to pay the fee, but it's not just the fee. You have to get permission.
I see. Okay.
And for some of these artists, they don't really care about the licensing fee so much as alienating their fans. Yeah. Because certainly if their music is played at a Trump campaign, a lot of fans are going to assume, that the Bruce Springsteen is a Trump fan or whatnot. They're going to assume an affiliation, and the loss of their fan base could be substantially more than the piddly small amount of licensing fees they might get for playing the song at a campaign. And remember, these are not long-term licensing. A money stream that's going to continue for years. In November, it's all over. So it's not something that, let's go ahead and give them permission because we're going to have a steady stream of income for the next several years. No, it's just a really short blip, but their lost fan base might be forever.
Sure.
And it might forever be associated with a politician they don't want to have anything to do with.
Yeah. But, of course, with Donald Trump, he'll always have Kid Rock. Hey, Professor Rizvi, thank you so much. Always great to talk with you. Always an enjoyable experience. Thanks so much.
Okay. It is. I love it. Thank you so much.